You murdered a policeman. Duke, the weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Did you think you'd get away with it? Did you think I wouldn't know? I'll be there, around every corner, in every empty room, as inevitable as your guilty conscience.
Hey, Mitch!
Oh, hey, Ed.
Sorry I'm late. I just had to get into costume. What's been happening?
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Who's that? Let's just start the show. Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Halleck.
And welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thanks so much for joining us. If you are a regular viewer, thanks for coming back. Before we begin, Mitch, can you tell the viewers out there how can you find out a little bit more about what we do here?
Absolutely, Ed. It is easy as being an opium warlord in the Far East and then finding out you're secretly a superhero at night. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button below, and you too will be subscribed to Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure and follow us every time we go on a new adventure and be notified. And plus hit the like button there because it makes us feel all warm and squishy inside.
It does indeed. And we're heading to a film that is near and dear to my heart. In fact, this film is probably in the top 10 of my favorite films ever.
Oh,
it really got under my skin when I saw this in 1994. For some reason, I just loved it to death. And we are talking about 1994's The Shadow. Did you see The Shadow in cinemas, Mitch?
I did. In fact, it was playing at my favorite theater where I saw Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Superman 2 on the last day it was in operation. They were closing the theater to demolish it to make way for a new Yale building. And I went, and The Shadow was the very last movie I saw at the Showcase Cinema in Orange, Connecticut. And I loved the theater, and I loved the movie, and I had a great time. So yes, sir, I did see it in the theaters.
When it came out, I saw it at Village Cinemas, but I think it must have been it felt like 6 months prior, but probably 3 months prior to it opening in Australia. At the cinema, they had the Shadow pinball machine by Bally, which is rated as one of the best pinball machines.
It is.
In the Internet Pinball Database.
Got the little gun handle.
That's
for
correct.
The shooter. Yeah.
You had the knife and the perber and everything like that. So I knew all the quotes because of all the call outs from the video game before I even knew what the movie was really about. And I just love this film. Unfortunately, not everyone else did. So it means we need to go to Leonard Maltin's movie guide, and let's see what Leonard Maltin has said about it. Lamont Cranston, having lived a life of moral degradation, is reborn as a single-minded crime fighter with the ability to cloud men's minds. This adaptation of the venerable pulp novels and beloved radio show, brought to the screen before in the late 30s and in a 1940 serial, comes frustratingly close to working, but fails. Cranston is both inscrutable and uninteresting. Great production design and wonderful effects get lost in a movie that keeps the viewer at arm's length throughout. And what a waste of a great supporting cast. 2.5 stars.
Haas and Pfeffer. Well,
so, I disagree. I
disagree too. I mean, I know the box office will agree with that review because it didn't do so well.
$48 million on a $40 million budget. So,
however, in retrospect, looking back, it wasn't like it had the easiest time at the box office because The Lion King opened, Forrest Gump opened the week after this movie, and there was another big hit. I can't even think of what it was, but it was sandwiched right in there in 1994 with all these other mega hit movie classics. I mean, what are you going to do? There's only so much audience you can get, you know?
I agree. And look, I do agree with some of the points. The production designed by Joseph Nemec III, who did Terminator 2, he did Twister, was
Yeah.
beautiful. It was filmed
Oh
on all
yeah.
the backlots. In fact, I have
At
to go through some
Universal.
of the because we had the Universal Studios backlot VIP
Yeah,
tour. We
I
got
went
to
on that
see.
tour. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to see if I can find any of those building shells or anything like that.
I
But
remember I took that backlot tour. They still had a lot of the leftover props and cars from Dick Tracy.
yes,
As you went on the car, they like the sets, the colorful sets and everything.
yes.
But yeah, I no, they see. I went there in '93, so or '92, so they didn't film it yet, obviously.
Yep.
But yeah, it was filmed in 60 days on the Universal backlot, and they had to keep taking breaks because the tours from people like you were coming through. So they literally had to stop the production and let the visitors go through, the fan people come through. So
And
yeah.
we should say, obviously, if you just think it's a movie, it's obviously not a movie. It has
Oh
been
no.
the characters predates Superman, predates
Yep.
Batman,
Yep.
1930, 31, I think it was.
1930, he was the host of a radio show. They had the narrator was called The Shadow, and then it became so popular they spun him off in 1931. I think his name is Walter.
Walter
Trying to remember.
Gibson.
Walter Gibson, yeah, and they became a series of pulp novels, if you will, which are just like dime store stories, yeah,
Yeah,
novels.
Orson Welles did the narration
Oh yeah, on the
for it.
radio, yeah, yeah, he had
Yep.
his own
It
radio show for
was
years.
it was super pop, and
Couple.
there's a great line in the film that says, they're hearing the news reports, and the lady goes, "Oh, I think they just are talking about the shadow just to so more people would listen to the radio," which is
Yeah, yeah,
exactly
yeah,
exactly what. And I should say before we get to the cast,
yeah.
David Koepp wrote the script
Yes.
from
Who
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal
and
Skull,
Crystal
Mission
Skull and
Impossible, Jurassic
the
Park.
Phantom. Did he
No,
write the
that was
Phantom?
Jeffrey Boehm.
Oh, that's I'm thinking Indiana Jones. We did this
Yep.
already. Oopsie.
Yes.
No, but Jeffrey Boehm. David Koepp was that's not David Koepp.
Is that David
David
Koepp?
Koepp. He heard it now, but he just did Jurassic Park, which was
Yes.
huge. And funny you say David Koepp. I just went to the movies this weekend to see James Mangold's Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan
Yes.
story. And he's got 2 movies coming out with Steven Soderbergh or Soderheim, whatever his name is. But it said screenplay by David Koepp. And then another trailer came up, screenplay by David Koepp. I go, it's coming up David Koepp everywhere.
It is.
But-
It's
but no,
it's captivating.
It's kept. Anyway, yes, he wrote the screenplay for this
did.
based on all those decades worth of comic books. Because I read the Shadow. I told you before we started. One of the very first books my dad bought me as a kid, comic book wise. He bought me a Batman comic and he bought me a Shadow comic, which was done by DC Comics back in the early 70s by a writer named Denny O'Neil and Mike Kaluta. And I was trying desperately to find it, but I could not. But I've known
You'll
about
find
the
it
Shadow.
seconds afterwards.
I'll
Don't worry,
after we end the show, it'll be right there. Like
I've
it
got
always
some
is.
Shadow stuff. So directed by Russell Mulcahy, Australian director who directed
Highlander.
Yes, he directed Highlander
Yes.
and also Razorback, which is an Australian killer pig movie, which is really good.
Oh,
Stylistic.
and Highlander 2.
Yes.
We don't talk about Highlander.
The Quickening, no, we don't, but that's all right. So, directed by and a wonderful score by Jerry Goldsmith,
Jerry Goldsmith. Yeah.
that uses
yeah.
these wonderful sort of these that goes doo, these really sort of like pulpy sounds.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which I bought the soundtrack as soon as it came out. The other thing I loved about it, as a Meatloaf Jim Steinman fan, Jim Steinman has written the closing track called "Original Sin" by Taylor
Really?
Dane.
I
Which
did
was
not
originally
know
from
that.
Pandora's Boxes. That was for their album, but they repurposed some of the lyrics. So I love that. I got the CD single of that. And it's got
Wow.
a great cast. Alec Baldwin as Lamont Cranston. You
Yeah.
have Penelope Ann Miller as Margot Lane. And it's funny having her surname Lane. I think there was
That's where they got
rumors or
Lois Lane.
suggestions that she
Yeah.
was Lois's sister.
Oh, well, there's that. No,
You
but
know,
yeah, I've heard that. And it's funny too because Doc Savage, which is another pulp hero, which they
Yes.
made a terrible movie out of, his name is Clark Savage. So you're like,
Yes.
oh wait, Clark Kent,
Yes.
Margot Lane, Lois Lane. It's not that people borrow
Well,
from each other.
who
but
played
they did.
who played
Jonathan
Lois Lane in
Winters?
Superman the movie?
Jonathan Winters?
Superman the movie?
Margot Kidder.
I
Oh,
know
it's
it's
full
spelled
circle.
yes. Anyway, so there you go. John Lone, from The Last Emperor, who plays Shiwan Khan, and he's a nasty
Yeah.
villain. I really love him. There's also some really good supporting actors. Peter Boyle as Mo, the taxi
The taxi
driver.
driver. Yeah, the cab
You've
driver.
got
Yeah.
Tim Curry
Yep.
as Farley Claymore, who
Claymore,
is
yeah.
wonderful, chewing up the scenery. Sir Ian, he wasn't a sir then. Ian
No.
McKellen
And
as
I think his
Reinhardt.
first big American movie role, I think. I don't
Yep.
think he did. He was like 50 years old already, but he
Yes.
just started doing the big breakthrough. This is his breakthrough movie.
Yep.
That crazy kid.
Jonathan Winters
That's right.
as his uncle, the
Uncle,
police chief.
the commissioner. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
You've got James Hong, who's been in everything.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was the God, he was in Blade Runner. He was the one that made the eyes for
That's right. He was Lopan and
Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I can't think of his name right now, but he lives right in New York, and he was on Star Trek Voyager.
Ethan
Oh,
Phillips.
Ethan Phillips was in the movie. He was the security guard at the
Yes.
night watchman, whatever, at the hotel,
Yes.
at the
Yeah,
museum that ends up.
You had Max Wright, who was the dad from Alf. Is it Larry Hankin?
Oh, the older fellow that ran his
No,
like
the who
network.
the other taxi driver who drives into the petrol. He was. I think he was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as well. You would recognize Al Leong, who's been, the henchman
Oh,
who's
he's the doc.
always
He's the
in
doctor.
with the
Yeah,
handlebar mustache. He's in it as
yeah.
well. There are so many
Oh, you
little
mean the stunt guy that's in every movie in the '80s? That guy?
yes,
Yeah,
yep.
he was in Lethal Weapon. It's Wrath of Khan or
He
Star
was
Trek
in The
2.
Phantom, where we just spoke about. He's
Yeah, yeah,
been
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a really good supporting role. And what I really do like is that they give these like smaller characters
Yeah.
well-rounded, they're believable. They give them just
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
of
yeah.
quirky dialogue. They're not just standing there
No.
and then, cannon fodder. They actually have a bit of a personality and you can believe who they are, which I really love.
Yeah.
The So great production design, great visual effects. I thought for the
Yeah.
time it used
For the
some
CGI.
early computer
Yeah,
visual
CGI on
effects.
the little dagger with the little
The
face and everything.
Perba,
Yeah.
the Perba, that
Yeah.
knife, which we could buy a replica of that.
Could you
And this
really?
was supposed to be, yeah, this was supposed to be
Oh,
like they were hoping this was going to be a huge blockbuster. So
yeah, like a
they
whole
did
series of movies.
they did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame that they didn't, but they did a
No.
lot of merchandising. Um, There's my
Oh, I
Blu-ray,
know
which
it.
I had to which I watched
Yeah.
rewatched last night. We've got the novel.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
who did the novel?
Oh, I'm gonna say Alan Dean Foster,
No,
Rob McGregor.
no, James Luceno.
Really, another Star Wars guy. He did
Yep,
the Han Solo stuff. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yep. And he
James.
actually thanks Brian Daly for
Oh,
his support
see
in there.
the
So it
Han
is all
Solo.
related. So
See,
and
all
this
connected.
expands quite a bit. And I know James Luceno added a lot of bit from the comics and the early pulp
Yeah,
novels, which
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
good.
Yeah, because he's not Lamont Cranston when he starts off. He's another guy named Crandall, who's a World War One airplane pilot.
Yes.
The first iteration of the Shadow, his alter ego, secret identity, was it the rich millionaire playboy, which would be adapted by Bruce Wayne years later.
Yes.
But yeah, there you
They
go.
also did, if you can
Trading
see,
cards?
trading cards. So
I
I've
have
got
some trading cards. I forgot. Yeah.
I I love these.
You know what they
From
had
Tops.
lots of here? I was gonna say, I remember going to KB Toy Store was a toy store chain throughout the US,
Hmm.
and all the Shadow stuff was on like markdown. As soon as it hit the state, I was like, what happened? But I remember, and I have it here, I had the Shadow where when he squeezes legs, his arms go up.
Yes.
Who wouldn't? But they came up and he had two guns and it had the
Yes.
laugh and it went, ah, ha, 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 when you did that. And then there was a nicer Shadow that had the cape,
Yes.
the
And
black
you had the
cape with
quick
the red
change
inside.
one where he was
The quick
Lamont
change.
Cranston.
He would flip, and you know what was really cool? They had the cab,
Yes.
Max's cab, which was like souped up version of the New York cab driver.
They
So
had that. They had the a motorcycle for Shiwa Khan with a
yeah, yeah,
sidecar. They had the Shadows like cruiser, which looked a bit like a Batmobile, a
yeah,
1930s
yeah, 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 yeah,
Batmobile.
yeah.
I never got any of those. They really
Really?
didn't hit here, and I know you can get them in still on card pretty cheap
Oh
um,
yeah.
in the States. So if you ever do see one, Mitch, in your travels,
Oh no, I do. Oh, I see the Shadow stuff a lot actually. It's because it didn't sell well. I mean,
I
unfortunately, the
know.
movie bombed, like I said, because it was dealing with a lot of big competition, Forrest Gump, Lion King, all that. But the merchandise was so plentiful. I know you
Yep.
hate to hear this, but it was everywhere. I mean, you couldn't get rid of it. I mean, nobody wanted it. The funny thing is, the Shadow, the comic book I mentioned in the 70s, and then it went away, and then it came back. Dark Horse, which is another comic company,
Yep.
they had it for a while, but there was a great, I thought it was great, run of the Shadow. They brought him into modern day in the
Oh.
late 80s. And it was done by Howard Chaykin, who's a writer
Mhm.
artist who I get at my show all the time. He's done Indiana Jones, he does the Star Wars cover, but he's a funny guy. And then there's another guy named Kyle Baker, and they did a story where the Shadow and he fights Sherwood Khan, but it's all in the future. It's like robots and stuff. The Shadow's head was taken off and put on a giant robot body. So it was Mecha Shadow. It was crazy. And it only ran like 19, 20 issues. They never finished the storyline because the book got canceled.
Yep.
But I remember getting that cover and I blew it up. I worked in a copy shop and I blew up the cover with the Shadow bursting through a wall with this robot body.
Detected at front door.
That's the
Ooh.
Shadow
Oh,
now.
no.
And is that you, Lamont? So, but I remember it was very popular. And then it had another series of stuff come out from a company called Dynamite Comics just recently. And they did the origin of the Shadow. They told his stories by a guy named Matt Wagner. They did a book where the Shadow meets Batman, which was a great run. It was like a mini series. And then they had some other Shadow crossovers, like Shadow meets Green Hornet, and a lot of these other old radio heroes. But the character is really cool, and they tried to do a sequel to this movie, not with Alec Baldwin, but it was later on I heard that they were trying to bring it back, but it just didn't take off. And I don't know why, because it would make nowadays when you have so many streaming services, I don't know why somebody doesn't take it. I think it's almost public domain. I don't know if I'm
Look,
right
you're
about
probably
that.
right. Why wouldn't you do a series like a
A
Netflix
murder,
series or something like
and
that?
it's all in the dark. And the funny thing is, that's the best part. You could pull this off easy without a lot of special effects. So we talked about they were going to make a movie version of it. Sam Raimi was
Yes.
attached to this. He wanted to do it, but for some reason he didn't get to do it. He went and made his own version, which was called
Darkman.
Darkman. And if you look at the movies, it's very similar with the
It's
outfit.
pretty with Liam Neeson. It's pretty,
Liam
and then
Neeson,
some
yeah.
awful sequels.
Oh, the sequels are terrible, but I
Yes.
love the first Darkman. I saw that in the theaters. I was like, this is great because it had some stylized scene cuts and all that stuff. But
That was 1990, I think that came out.
yeah,
So
we
that
should do that
predates
one
the actual
someday.
movie.
That's
They did a board game, which was like a three-dimensional board game, which
Do you
looks
have
really good for
that?
the show. I don't.
Ah,
Never made it here, unfortunately. And it cost like the only one I went last night on eBay going, oh, how much? I've got to get some stuff.
yeah.
And it's like $150,
I
unfortunately.
do
So,
have the poster. When you went to the show back there, they started doing these
yes.
11 by 17 like little mini posters. I do have that laminated somewhere because I worked at a laminate company. I don't know why I did it, but I have it. It's the poster. Even the poster was kind of cool. You know, it just had a very minimal. Yeah, it's the
So
one that's on the
there was
novel.
that
Yeah.
one, and then they did oh no, I don't have it on this
They
one,
did
but
no, they did one with the actors for I think a
yes.
video release.
And in
Yeah.
Australia, the tagline, well, not the tagline, but they had a quote from some TV newspaper or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that saying
review.
that
Yeah.
the wittiest action adventure since Indiana Jones, and that
Well,
and I look,
that's
I think it has elements of that. I think it's a little tongue in cheek, the little
it
jokes
is.
about hey, you mean like
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
atomic
Where did you get
bomb?
that
Hey,
outfit?
that's
Brooks Brothers, that
yes,
type of stuff. And there, the weirdest part about this movie, and I think that's what maybe threw people, because even I thought it was a little weird, when Lamont Cranston, aka Alec Baldwin, turns into the Shadow. His facial features morph into a big. He looks like the traditional image of the Shadow that
yes,
that I got
yeah.
here on the book cover right there with the big
Hang on.
nose and the stuff. Yeah,
There
yeah,
he
yeah.
is.
That's
Hang on.
what he. Yeah, he looks like his brother Billy
Oh,
Baldwin,
Billy
who's one of
Baldwin.
the
Yeah.
Baldwin. Yeah, and it's just weird. I don't. They never really explain it. I think that
Well,
was
I
his
think
real
he's
self.
clouding. I always thought that he was clouding people's minds to
So
to
they
change
wouldn't
his
see what he looked
appearance.
like.
Yeah,
Oh, so that's his like.
that's what
Oh,
I.
okay.
That's how I took it. So
No, all right. That's a good interpretation. But I thought it was great. Penelope Ann Miller was
yep.
fantastic. Didn't know she was married to the comedic actor Will Arnett during the filming of this. I didn't know
Oh,
that.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that
but there's
either.
that scene where he rips off his own face, which is
That's really
insane.
good.
Alec Baldwin puts his hand, and I think
Yes,
it's practical. I don't know if it's
it is
West.
because what they do is they spin around and they block it
Yeah,
like a vase passes
yeah,
by,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
when
yeah.
they do the cut.
Yeah.
Um, it's really well done. All the
No,
effects are really good. What I really love, sorry, is
go ahead, go ahead.
the matte paintings in this. Like
Yeah.
they're matte paintings, but they look really good. It's
Oh, the
really
New
old
York
school.
City, yeah,
Yep.
the hotel. But
Oh,
the
and the
problem,
Empire State Building where the guy falls off the Empire State
oh, and
Building
it bounces in
and
the
he
background. Yeah, yeah, it was kind of sick. That doesn't happen actually. But no, the reason why I think this movie gets messed up is because there's that campiness to it. And it almost seems like it doesn't know which direction it wants to go.
Mm,
Like, we don't want to be too serious because at this time you'd already had Batman
yes.
with Michael Keaton. Batman Returns was already out by then.
Yep.
Then you had Judge Dredd, you had The Rocketeer, you had all these other movies. The Phantom wouldn't come out till next year. But all these movies were trying to be like Raiders, and Raiders Lost Ark is a unique thing because it works. There's humor in it, but it doesn't go out of its way to be funny. It just kind
Yes.
of happens. Where in this movie, I remember she wakes up, Margot Lane wakes up, and she's, "How was your night's sleep?"
Yeah.
"Oh, it was fine. How was yours?" He goes, "I dreamt I ripped off my entire face."
And there was
And
another
you're like,
person underneath. Yes.
yeah, and it's like, is that supposed to be funny? Are we supposed to be laughing at this stuff? And Tim Curry, God bless him, when he goes nuts as Claymore at the end with the machine gun, and he just starts drooling, and he's like, there's your exit now, Claymore, take it. And
And
he jumps off the thing.
yeah.
I'm like, this is kind of dark sometimes. It's almost like that Shazam movie that came out where
Mhm.
a couple years ago with Zach Levy. There's scenes in that movie that are like really dark for a superhero kids picture
Yes.
where they throw a guy in a wheelchair out a window, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know about this. But Baldwin's kind of funny too because he does that delivery, and sometimes I'll go to lunch with Jerry Ordway, and he goes, "Oh, do your Alec Baldwin." I'm like, "I'll have the pizza with the onions on top," and he just does that. The
Yeah.
eyes, it's like,
Hey,
"Hey,
that's the US of A you're talking about.
yeah, hey pal, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the U.S. of A you're talking about." Yeah, he does all that. "I'm gonna stop you. I've seen through your plan, and it's not gonna work." And he kind of has that weird delivery. It's like it's a
I
sing-songy.
thought it worked quite I thought it worked quite well, and it was quite, it's a really
Yeah.
good ensemble cast. It's a great score. Alexander Courage did some of the orchestrations as well.
You know what? There was another part that's really weird is the opening when he's this opium drug dealer
Yes,
guy up in Shangri-La, wherever the hell it is. I can't remember, but
Tibet.
he's got Alec Baldwin's got a manly hairy
He
chest,
does.
and he's sitting there and they have these like fake fingernails on him and
Oh
such in
yes,
this wig, and it's like shoot right through the guy takes a hostage and he just has him shoot right through the guy to kill him and all that.
that's
But I was
right.
like, yeah,
I think it showed I think it showed how
how he's
like
gone from the dark side to now
yes.
he's trying to
And I
make
love that
amends for his life.
transition, like he goes through there's a written I think it's a really
Yeah.
good origin story because it's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah, yeah, yeah.
quick. And
Yeah.
then explains he got all that, and then it says about the he's about to go through a living hell or hell
Yeah.
that we know
Yeah,
as,
yeah.
and then comes up New York
New York
City
City.
and that wonderful bridge scene. And I must say, we've got
Oh,
a Dolby we've got Dolby
surround sound.
surround
Yeah.
7.1 in our house,
Yeah.
and that sound is fantastic.
I
When he's
remember
all
that in the
around.
theater. Yeah, that when I saw it in the movie theater, I remember that too. It's like, dude, you killed a cop or whatever like that. You're gonna pay.
Yes.
It was all around, and when he did the crazy laugh, it was all around the theater. You're like, what the hell, So
So it's
it was
really
a
it's
lot of fun.
definitely worth watching. It's great. I
It
know for
is.
some reason there's been a lot of stuff on the Shadow popping up on YouTube for some
Well,
reason.
no, somebody just basically lowered the color on their TV and they amped up the contrast
Yeah.
and they show it in black and white. And they're like, "Hey, have you seen the shadow in black and white?" It does look really cool the way the
Yeah,
cinematography looks and
very
everything. But
noir, and it
yeah, and
looks
that
of its
noir.
time.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah,
hides a lot of stuff as well. I think
it does.
But,
It does.
but definitely worth watching. You can get it on Blu-ray. Unfortunately, no like 4K versions available.
No,
You
there
can
was a.
rent it in
I
just
was going to say there's a
HD.
collector's version that came out a couple years ago that had new interviews with the cast because
Ah,
I have that one that you have, but then they did come out. It was not 4K, but they came out with a cleaner version, and they had recent interviews with Alec Baldwin and Penelope Ann Miller about why it didn't work and why it wasn't more successful and
yeah.
stuff. So it
So
is what it.
definitely worth a watch. And you know what else is worth a watch?
Penelope Ann Miller.
Well, yeah, she's pretty smoking hot, but
Carlito's Way too. No, you know what, Ed? This show, you don't have to look into the hearts of men. No, you can look into your TV or your whatever, your iPhone or whatever the
that's
hell, your
right.
computer, and you can watch Ed and I play dress up. That doesn't come out right, but we're here
That's on
every.
our that's on our OnlyFans
That's
page.
on our
Okay?
OnlyFans. You got to pay a little extra for that. You see the
Yeah.
real bitch. But
More like lonely fans, I think it is. But anyway,
yeah, that. So just tune in, subscribe to Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. YouTube will follow us every time we go back into the past. Look at the TV, movies, toys, and more right here on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you'll know when we do it, and hit the like button because it makes us feel good that people are out there watching us every week. Go to Terrificon, Connecticut's Terrific Comic Con. I forgot to mention that. It's the posters over there. Oops, self plug. I'm doing the plug, shameless plug for my job. Go to Australia to see Ed if you want. He's
right.
down
Hang on,
there.
there we go. Oh, hang on.
Yeah,
There
there
we
you go. And go to GamerCon. That's coming up too. Pay my bills so I can buy more junk that nobody wants. Except Ed.
Yeah, me.
Go to his store. Go to
That's right.
Retro Archaeology. If you happen to be in the Melbourne area, go to Retro Archaeology. Open 5 days a week?
No, 4 days a week. Yeah.
4 days a week. 5 if you're lucky.
I know.
And
I've got to
you
go
too
work
can
there
buy
this
stuff.
afternoon. So there you
That's
go.
it.
So signing off. This is Ed Dollister.
Is it really Ed Dollister or is it the Shadow?
And
this is
remember, of
Mitch.
course, when I was just going to say, when I say the sun is shining,
But the ice is slippery.
that's right. And we'll see you
Right,
next time. Thanks for watching.